of all, it's cool to talk to you because you and I have offline conversations all the time, but now we're doing it sort of in front of everyone. But I first met you at with my mother.
That's right. Yes.
At the Golden Door, where the Golden Door. Let's contextualize a little bit. Is an extraordinary sort of wellness, right? Wellness spa type situation. This was pre-COVID. It was my mom's 70th birthday, and so I brought her there. The last time I had been there was in her belly. Yeah,
and it was my 60th birthday, so we were both celebrating birthdays.
Yes. And so we had that. We were, and initially at that place, when you say that, like, you get there and like women who have been going there forever kind of understand that there's this camaraderie thing. Yep. And then Mom and I were kind of like, we're having our own, like, we're not all going to talk. Okay. Like I'm from New York. I was like, I can't. Okay. And then you show up and we do start talking to people because then we realize that's the cool part of it. Mm. And everyone there, Cindy, was like, yo, that's Cindy Gallop. You got to get in there. And I was like, okay, like as in speak to her. And so then we finally, the second I started talking to you, I was like, I can't talk to any of these other bitches. I need to talk to this woman. I was like, who are you, mystical creature? Anyway, but now obviously the entire world knows who you are. So I have a question for you. Given that in a world, I made $0.00 in revenue. And you are one of the greats when it comes to saying that's fucking bullshit. Can you speak to what did I do wrong?
Sure. So, and I just want to contextualize my response to that, Lake, because I want to say to everybody listening, and forgive me, ladies, I am going to use profanity.
I just did, so
fantastic. As Lake says, I want all of you and all of us to set out unashamedly to make an absolute goddamn fucking shit ton of money. And I deliberately articulate it like that because that is how much money I want all of us to make. And by the way, very importantly, I don't want us just to make that money for ourselves, although we all would love to, obviously. The reason you must make it your absolute goal to make an absolute goddamn fucking shit ton of money is because when we make that kind of money, we can then fund other women. We can support other women. We can help other women. We can donate to other women. We need to build our own financial ecosystem because the white male one is not working for us. And just think about everything going on around us right now in the pandemic with Black Lives Matter, and imagine what we could do if we had the same amount of money in our gift that white men do. So you absolutely you owe it to us all to set out to make an absolute goddamn fucking shit ton of money. Then, what I would say in answer to your question, Lig, and it's bearing in mind that you made in a world, some time back, the opportunity we all have now is that the pandemic and Black Lives Matter has ensured the world will never be the same again. And that is a very good thing, especially for those of us who are never the status quo to begin with. Because the way I recommend you approach making money now is I would like you to design your own business model. And the reason I articulate it like that is because I observe too many people thinking either, whatever industry you work in, wherever you're a creator, oh, this is the industry business model. This is the only way the industry has ever made money. It's the only way the industry ever will make money. Or they think there's a set number of business models out there and I've got to operate one of those. Neither is true. Your business model can be anything you want it to be. And a really good starting point is ask yourself the question, how would I like to make money doing what I do? Because it's a safe bet you'd like to make it differently to the way that you currently make it.
I mean, it's really interesting, because I think, when we've just discussed this before, first of all, I appreciate what you're saying, because the reset button and that concept of like everything in the world is disrupted, right?
Yep.
Culturally, politically, socially, which we have to look at as an opportunity, or else it is just doom. And as humans, it is in our nature to, grow from the ashes, right? So I feel that, in this reset, we do have this opportunity to demand that there is a new normal, right? And there is inherently a new normal, obviously, because of in our health and how we proceed and how we greet people. From there's no more shaking hands. I mean, down to the basest level and the simplest level. And then how we educate our children and our future generations, like the choices that we make and how we, what we buy, what we show them, what we expose, how we dictate ourselves, right? So in Women in Film is as you know, I'm on the board of Women in Film, which is, an organization dedicated 100% to, sort of creating a culture and an industry that awards gender parity. And we have this one initiative, which is hashtag hire her back, right? Because the first people who are let go is like, spoiler, is the women in the workplace. They're, because they're playing mommy too, or whatever. Okay. They don't get to work as much, whatever it is. I'm not kidding. This is like a real
no.
It's time to reset. I think, hashtag hire her back. It's like, hire that bitch back. Because first of all, let me say something, which is, I think hiring women is just good business. Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Inherently multitaskers. We can do 5,500 things at the same time and all really well. It's like.
And actually, the important thing about that, Lake, is precisely because we are multitaskers, we deliver tremendous business efficiency because we are focused on results, not process. We are not about the macho male work culture, which has got to be seen to be putting in 14-hour days in front of the boss in the evening. When we are juggling a bunch of shit, we're going, how can I get this done as efficiently and effectively as possible to get to the right result? And every business needs a ton more of that.
Yeah, that's such a great point, because especially in the pandemic, it's like we are all sort of thrusted into an unusual circumstance, right? We're out of our comfort zones and how we function efficiently. I am like such an efficient man. Like I love a well-oiled machine. And partially why I like making movies and why I like taking part in TV in that industry is because it is such a mechanical kind of like, it's like, you're going to do this, you're doing that, you're allocated to that, that person's doing that, we all put it together, and I love that, right? And women are like, it's a bit like, oh, wait, okay, that's not how we're doing it now. Okay, we don't have a place to go to. So from home, you do end up in a situation where you're like, okay, there's a babysitter coming for 2 hours. Or my husband's covering for 2 hours, or my partner's covering for 2 hours with the kids. I've got 2 hours to fucking get everything done. And the efficiency that I am like developing masses of shows right now for it because of that kind of like, kind of efficiency. Wow, that's just like a lot of.
And actually, I would encourage everybody listening to us, Lake, to absolutely adopt that policy of efficiency for your own business, your own creation, because in an ideal world, we all want to get to the situation where what we do is prints money. We want serious efficiency when it comes to passive income, when it comes to the ability to make more money doing less work. That is an entirely laudable goal. Seriously, feel free to go for efficiency.
I know. I just want to say something though, which I keep having, and I'm just like being honest and transparent. It was just like, I feel like embarrassed and bad to want those things, because I'll tell you what, I come from, I don't know whether it's like culturally or whether I just honestly, like in the movies that I make, I want to put good out. I know this is going to come off schmaltzy, but I really, you know, I feel like I have this great privilege to put kindness and a generosity of spirit in the world, right? Like if somebody's driving along and they're like, you know, they get cut off on the way to work and then they're in a shitty mood, you know what I mean? For the rest of the day, and then they're mean to somebody else and they're mean to somebody. Okay, so it's the trickle thing, right? So if the night before you watched something that I made and it made you feel, I don't know, just better. It was funny. It was, and it made you go, oh, you know what? I have a little bit of hope for that. Or, oh, that was loving. Or, you know, then maybe they, you know, that person won't cut you off the next day. They'll just be like, let it slide. Go for it. No, like, I know that's silly, but.
No, like, I love what you've said there. And that is exactly what I'm talking about. When I talk about
monetary, you know what I mean?
You deserve to make a shit ton more money precisely because that is your philosophy. And one of the things I've been talking about with the pandemic is that what this is driving is the opportunity to revalue what our society has devalued and to take money away from what it has historically valued. What I mean by that is, you know, in the pandemic.
Yeah, I'm saying I love this point, and I'm appreciating that you're calling me out on it a little bit, because you're right that, and just tell me if we're on the right path here, that you're saying what historically has been valued is like the white male kind of.
What historically has been valued is men who don't give a shit about anything but making money.
Right.
And they have been rewarded with tons of money. What has been devalued is women thinking exactly the way you do, which is we care and we want to make the world a better place. And, because they're women and that's what they do, we should pay them nothing. And the evidence of that has been that, you know, every evening in the pandemic here in New York at 7:00, we have clapped for the carers. We've clapped for the healthcare workers. We've applauded the first responders, the nursing home carers, the grocery clerks, the vast majority of whom are women, who are being paid nothing to do what the pandemic has now made us realize is enormously valuable work.
Right.
And so on the other side of this, I want all of us to do everything we can to revalue the fact that it's precisely the people who care who should be making a ton of money. Yes. And the white men who don't give a shit about anybody else should not be making the money they do. And so to your point, Lake, the reason I say to women, design your own business model is because you can design your beliefs, your philosophies, and your caring into it. And I'll give you my own example. So with Make Love Not Porn, my venture, and by the way, for listeners, we are pro-sex, pro-porn, pro-knowing the difference. We're the world's first and only social sex video sharing platform, user-generated, human-curated.
They're going to click on that right now. They're going to leave us.
Excellent. MakeLoveNotPorn.com.
Okay.
And we have a revenue-sharing business model. So our members pay to subscribe, rent, and stream social sex videos. Half the income goes to our contributors, who we call our Make Love Not Porn stars. Now, the reason I built my startup around a revenue-sharing business model is twofold. The first reason is I believe very strongly that everybody should realize the financial value of what they create. And I feel that especially strongly because my background is theatre and advertising. Two industries where ideas and creativity are massively undervalued, even by the creators themselves. And so I believe that when you create something that gives other people pleasure, you should see a financial return on it. And the more people you give more pleasure to, the greater that financial return should be. That's reason number one. Reason number two is I designed Make Love Not Porn's revenue sharing model to democratize access to income. So when we launched 8 years ago, I wrote a blog post about our revenue sharing business model, and I titled it, How Make Love Not Porn Can Help the Global Economy. And I began it by saying, I said, you know all those little scam ads that pop up on the internet all the time going, make $2,000 a week working from home? Well, now you can.
Yeah.
The point being that a number of our Make Love Not Porn stars now in the pandemic, like everybody, have lost their jobs, can't find work. They are telling us that our monthly payouts, which we make for doing what comes naturally and sharing it social on video, are actually getting them through the pandemic and supporting them through employment. And I cannot begin to tell you how that makes me feel when my democratized access to income business model is actually helping people survive. That's what I mean, Lake. You make the brilliant work you do because you care. Design that care into your personal business model to make sure it's valued and compensated and rewarded the way it should be.
Okay, so you're speaking at it from a monetary point of view, and I philosophically share a similar point of view when it comes to creative thought, right?
Yep.
So when I generate creative thought, just to speak to that for a second, it is almost exactly the same, which is I have this mantra that's like a banner in my brains that is, what do you want to see next? It's not even like question mark. It's like period.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean?
Yep. Fantastic.
So,
yep.
Yeah. And so in a way you're saying in terms of business model and how you run and function, you can also say, what do you want to see?
Yep, exactly. It's exactly the same principle. And by the way, the reason it's such an important principle, Lake, is because too many people do not do that. We live our lives in oiled grooves. They are dictated and guided by what other people think, our fear of what other people think. And so people very rarely stop and ask themselves, what do I want to see next? How would I like to make money? What actually matters to me?
Well, I mean, like in the creative process, it's virtually, it's integral that you never think of the viewer initially.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you're like, write for somebody through somebody else's, through thousands and millions of people's other eyes.
But here's the interesting thing, Lake, about what you're saying, because we are talking to an audience of creators who, if they're not careful, are sucked into, in the context of social media, worrying too much about what other people think of what they're doing. And they mustn't. Ladies, you must not do that. We are telling you, be yourselves, because that is what is unique creatively.
It literally is the only thing, like when I think about, independent film or anything where you go, God damn, that was so funny, like a stand-up special or whatever, right? But, or like a wholly independent movie that you're like, God, I've never seen anything like that. It's because there were less cooks in the kitchen, which can only say, follow the path of, that is only you,
Yep.
Because ultimately, like I get in with this fucking, internal monologue as well. It's like, what do people think? It's like my second feature didn't do as well. Oh, what did people think? Right? Like, oh, they didn't like it. Listen, if I made it trying to think about what the critics will say. I mean, look, sometimes people don't like the shit that you put out there. And
exactly.
I mean, I think that's part of the game. And then I almost felt like I had a badge of honor. Like I was like, I guess I'm like in it now because now they got something they like, something they don't like.
Like absolutely. Fear of what other people will think is the single most paralyzing dynamic in business and in life. You will never own the future if you care what other people think. Fuck that shit.
Fuck that shit.
Yep.
I mean, what the fuck? It is so hard because all we do, it's like you put something out, people they crave the likes, but then they also somehow it's like human nature to like criticize sometimes. You know what I mean? Like have an opinion. People want to judge and have an opinion. I think that's also human and we have to work on that, okay? Because that is not for the greater good, okay? I have to stop judging as well.
And that is why I say to everybody, never read the comments. Never read the comments.
We all do, though. We all read the comments.
No, we don't. I don't.
Well, you don't because you're one of the greats. But it's really hard because you can read 476 wonderful, wonderful comments and then one stinker, and that is, you remember it verbatim. You might as well get it tattooed on your fucking tit.
Yep.
Okay, so the point is, there's so many points, but I'm totally enthralled and excited about this. I do think that to some extent, creativity and, like you said, this goes to thinking about caring what people think. Like you said, make a shit ton of money, right? A fucking ton of money.
What sells is what has always sold, to your point, individual creative vision. That is what has sold. That is what will always sell, your individual, unique creative vision.
And I just feel that I feel a bit, look, I'm from New York, I'm Jewish, I don't know what to say. I feel a little bit of guilt. Oh God, we're getting a time warning to wrap it up.
Oh, right, okay. Right.
A little bit of guilt about that. But anyway, so are there questions? Are we allowed to take questions from the audience? Because they've said, hey, it's time.
Where do we see questions?
I don't.
I can't figure out
No, guys.
If there are any questions, somebody has to give us an indication.
But don't send any nude pics right now, because that goes to Love Not Porn.
Oh yeah, please come to Make Love Not Porn and become a Make Love Not Porn star.
Yeah.
Yes, say where to ask you guys questions if people want to go offline, because there are too many. And then anyone from the She Media team who can see the questions and is faster than my old ass eyes, can you jump on right now and ask these guys questions?
Yeah,
you find anything?
I saw one.
Jen.
Yeah.
Where are private messages, guys? Where is
I can't see them.
We are nailing this, right? Okay. Someone did ask, how do you transition from can you speak to transitioning from I think the social media scene, right, into filmmaking? Or basically, if you're looking to get into the filmmaking thing, where even do you begin? And I will say this, which is, it's not dissimilar from Cindy's philosophy, but it's really creating your own. When you create your own content, first of all, you're like, oh, I want to write and make films. And people are like, what's the best way to write? I'm like, well, you have to fucking show up. Okay. One of the hardest parts of writing is this. It's so hard to be like, today is the day. So anyway, the point is, you have to, your motivation and your push, you have to create your own deadlines. You create little writers' retreats for yourself. You write a short film. If you want to make a movie, in my opinion, I was like, I am not directing a feature until I direct a short. And my agent was like, then direct a short. And I was like, well, I don't have, all right, I'll go write one. And I wrote a short film, and that was my first foray into it. And that I invested in myself. I paid for it. I asked friends and family. With this little script that I had, I put my friends in it, and I made that, and that became an artifact and a calling card, a visual calling card for who I wanted to be as a filmmaker. So that's how I did it. And sorry, that was succinct.
I got another question for you guys. Sorry, this is Sam. From Melissa Lane. I hope that's Lane, and it might be IAN also. So I've been working in my industry for 10 plus years, and my biggest hurdle has been white women, not men. Any advice? And I say this without malice.
Oh, interesting. Okay. So, well, Cindy, I was going to say, I'd be interested to hear what you have to say about this, because, yeah.
Sure. So, without knowing more details, I would just make one point, which is that bitchy women bosses are a product of a male-dominated environment.
That's true.
And what I mean by that is, I call it Highlander Syndrome. There can be only one. When women know that in a male-dominated industry or company, there is only room for one token woman on the board, on the leadership team, on the project, as a partner, whatever it may be, that then forces them to compete with other women, which is a dynamic that we absolutely deplore, but is driven by, ultimately, men. And the other thing that produces toxic female bosses is, again, a male-dominated environment where one or two women at the top cannot make any change. The alien organism has to adapt to the culture around it. She has to become like the men. And to be perfectly frank, if you are in a company where that is the case, and you see no way through it, get the fuck out. because if she can't progress and she's taking it out on you, you won't progress either. And you'll be far better off going to a different environment where you can thrive.
Great. And I've got another one on this that's important. This is Sam again. For Lake, how do you manage motherhood with creative pursuit?
It's the best question. Listen, all I can say is, a lot of people always say, oh, look, you can't do everything perfectly. Okay. But I think it is about giving yourself permission to have time for yourself and your work and not try to do both at the same time, which means the only way that I am able to do it is to either work with my partner or a babysitter to take care of those kids while I arrive and show up for my work, because I know that that is a luxury. And I say that fully as I understand that is privilege to have a partner. If you're a single mom, like, it becomes more complicated because normally you'd say, well, I'll just have a family member help me or a babysitter, right? But in the pandemic, it's complicated right now. And so if you are working, for instance, in the first month or so of the pandemic, I didn't have, a babysitter to help me. So while they were napping or when they were watching their favorite movie, because I would do a movie in the day, I would show up real hardcore for that hour and a half and get as much done as possible. But, when things normalize again, it is about allowing yourself to take that time for yourself, because it makes you a better mom, makes you a better partner to whoever is sharing your bed with you. It makes you a better person, better friend, and it keeps you healthy. For me, work really is my sustenance. And I'm a grumpy, mean, impatient mom if I don't get to exercise that.
Okay, and finally, that's awesome. Feel it. Finally, I was thinking very quick one. Cindy, do you have a podcast? Very, very massive fans would like to know. And Lake, what can we look at next from you? Everyone, there's too many extremely emphatic, positive messages here who actually said, leave them on, and we don't have questions. We just want to hear them talk, and I get off. And so anyway, podcast, and then what's next? There always has to be something next, but what should we look out for? What do you want us to do and tune into? What can we do?
Well, Cindy, do you have a podcast?
Right. So people have been asking me this. No, I don't have a podcast, but obviously I now very seriously will consider having one. Although I can tell you that we are going to launch a podcast at Make Love Not Porn, which will be all sorts of people talking about real world sex and the social sex revolution. So look out for that, because we will be launching that within a month or so.
Yeah, and Cindy and I are talking. I'm courting her. Okay, I'm courting her for stuff. Just so you know. Okay. Okay. So there's a reason why I made her do this. Okay, and then for me, things to look forward to are the Cindy Gallop show. No, and also no, I'm writing my third feature right now, which is really cool, and obviously a strong female-driven dramedy. And then I play Poison Ivy on DC Universe's Harley Quinn, which is super delicious,
fantastic,
raunchy, not for kids animated show. And then I have a deal over at 20th Century Fox where I'm developing, honestly, over 5 shows for them. So I'm really excited. That's where I am right now. And Bless This Mess got canceled, so I dyed my hair a different color.
Amazing. You guys are rock stars. I think we have Jen coming on. There's also a suggestion you should do a podcast together if you're taking recommendations from the crowd. I think there's a lot of appetite for this chemistry right here. And so as you guys know, in the community, all questions are on the toughies, the easier ones, the fun ones, and the hard ones. So appreciate you all bringing it. And I'm going to hand it to Jen Denton, who didn't introduce herself, but she's the head of BlogHer, and she's coming.
Thank you so much.
Bye, guys. Great talking to you.